Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about Absolute Batman Arkham Special Issue 1 by Scott Snyder, Frank Tieri, Joshua Hickson and Roman Stevens. The secrets of Arkham are revealed in this special issue, which takes us far into the past where Dr. Amadeus Arkham begins a journal, hoping the writings serve as a chronicle of the infamous Arkham Asylum. Amadeus knows the journal will also serve as a confession of his deepest darkest secrets, a warning about the terrible evil he unleashed on the world, and a plea to stop reading before it's too late. So I'm really excited about the issue being one big lore dump on Arkham Asylum, Gotham, just all of the stuff that I really love about Batman and his history, just like the city and just like how it became the way it became. Just really a wonderful web of intrigue that Scott Snyder has been building out in the Absolute Batman book, and we're getting it all condensed into one issue here as well. At Arkham Asylum in 1945, Amadeus is brought out of reminiscing over old photos by a knock at the door, finding a young man who will be purchasing the asylum from him. The young man wonders if he's reconsidering the sale, but Amadeus knows that the price reflects that he just wants to get it over with and get out of the place while he still can. As they begin a tour of the grounds, the young man notices a painting of a woman on the wall, whom Amadeus reveals is his mother, citing how the asylum really begun with her. I like this initial setup with Amadeus selling the old asylum and, the tour being used as a way to sort of like explain more about the asylum and the different parts of it, and kind of leading us around this supposed haunted house almost, and kind of giving us its backstory. I'm also a sucker for gothic style horror, which this issue is just oozing with. It's just oozing with that old school like 1800s, early 1900s era horror, which I'm just drawn to because it's just so interesting and different than what we usually get. Amadeus reveals that his father fought for the Union during the Civil War, and he remembers his mother patiently waiting at the window, hoping to see him come walking down the road again. Soon the mother spots a man walking towards the house, believing it to be her husband, so the family race to meet him at the door, only to find it was a messenger soldier sent to deliver a message from President Johnson that explains how Amadeus's father was killed in the Battle of Palmito Ranch, but not the actual battle itself, a pointless squabble after General Lee had already surrendered. The news makes Elizabeth Arkham snap, and in her manic grief, she goes for the soldier's gun, violently shooting the messenger in the head before turning the gun on each of her children and then herself, leaving only Amadeus left alive, something he has pondered his entire life, never fully understanding why she let him live. So holy shit, talk about a dark origin, and it's almost the complete opposite of what Amadeus's origin usually is, which is he ends up seeing his mother get worse and worse with her mental illnesses, and so he ends up helping her commit suicide in a way to get her out of the mental illness, and then that starts him on the path to becoming a mental health practitioner and someone who wants to cure mental illness. I like here that it feels purposely darker and violent than what we usually get with Arkham, and also there's maybe some potential parallels between Bruce and Amadeus going on here. Both suffered intense gun-related trauma that took their family members, and it left them with much trauma, and they wanted to use that as the basis to help fuel their crusade to help people. Being left an orphan meant Amadeus was shipped off out of the city to an orphanage where he spent most of his youth before leaving as a young man with one dream: help people like his mother. He began work on a building which would be the place where people like his mother could go for the help they needed through science. He dubs the place Arkham Asylum, and with the money given to him by the Elliott Family Foundation, he purchases land for cheap, thanks to it being where the British kept colonial prisoners of war during the Revolution. He knew that Gothamites thought the place was haunted thanks to all of the abuse and loss of life that happened on the land, but none of that mattered to him since he saw it as a place of good that could do some good. Man, this all just all this deep lore about early Absolute Gotham and what went on there just interests me so much. I'd love if there was like some sort of like a reference book or something that would come out about the Absolute Universe, kind of like a visual dictionary sort of thing like we get with the Star Wars movies, and just like details like all the different stuff that goes on in all these different cities and the history and stuff. That stuff really interests me, and it very clearly shows here that Scott Snyder and Frank Tieri put in the work and the effort effort to actually make a history that's visually interesting to tell and talk about. Soon the asylum is finished, and it is everything Amadeus hoped for, a good place with a full staff of people who share his vision and gave the patients the help they needed, even when Gotham's patients were a little more in need than your regular run-of-the-mill patients. Amadeus knows that it wasn't without issues though, citing a man who was so vile and heinous that he wouldn't even say his real name, only noting in his journal that the man's name is Jack Doe. Amadeus reveals that by the time Jack arrived, he had already killed multiple men, women, and children, and after arriving at the asylum, he killed 2 nurses and another prisoner, taking glee in the killings as he always laughed, completed with a grin always present on his face during the act. So yeah, this guy has to be Jack Grimm, right? Or, a distant relative or something of him. I mean, he just ticks all the boxes, but also could maybe be a red herring, since it's too much like the Joker. This is probably the most Joker we've ever actually gotten in this, because it's just like an insane man who's got the smile going on, the long ratty hair that's kind of green. It just completely looks like what you would think a absolute Joker would look like, but actually isn't. And that's actually something I really like about this, since is this Jack Grimm? Is this someone else? You never really know, and that's what the whole thing about the absolute Joker was. You never really know what his true origin was. It kept his legend sort of living on, and you never know what is real and what's not, and what's just myth and what's real. It's very interesting, and I like that this adds another layer to that. Amadeus became obsessed with helping Jack Doe, as the young man who Amadeus is touring the facility with wants to know why the asylum fell on such hard times. Amadeus says that it was because of fewer and fewer patients, along with financiers pulling out and more modern facilities being created by Lazarus Corp in Metropolis and surrounding cities. Amadeus knows that the place would have closed sooner had it not been for the kindness of people like the young man, knowing full well that he kept backing them with donations. The man seems quite pleased that Amadeus knows that he was donating them money, although he likes keeping himself anonymous. Amadeus knows he did his research and appreciates the man's generosity, but the young man reveals that he has seen mental illness up close and personal, and it's their duty to find cures so that the younger generations never have to deal with it. He wonders if the doctor had any children of his own, and Amadeus actually stumbles over his words for a moment before revealing he does not have children. Very obvious that he's very much hiding something. Amadeus remembers how back in 1885, he opened his front door to find a blood-soaked child standing there. Bringing him inside, he finds the boy didn't know how he got covered in blood, but Amadeus could tell the boy suffered greatly and wanted to look after him, and eventually he took the boy in as his own, considering him a son. Like I said before about how there are some parallels between Bruce and Amadeus, I think this might even be another one, since now we have Amadeus taking a young orphan in and teaching him his ways. Amadeus is even drawn very much like a very early era Bruce Wayne. He's got this kind of look about him that kind of feels like he's like this sort of younger, rich guy who's helping this young kid. The way Frank Terry draws him here, you just feels like he's like right out of the 1940s era of Batman and how they would draw Bruce Wayne back then. Amadeus takes the boy through the asylum, finding that he's quite bright and catches on quick, becoming fascinated with the work Amadeus is doing, and soon it grew into his passion, believing in the good the place can do. They even came up with their own phrase for each other: tomorrow's a new page, something they'd utter to one another when they know that tomorrow will bring something new for them. Amadeus begins seeing the boy more and more as his son, someone he knows who could carry on his name and work. Eventually, the boy meets Jack Doe, who tries to taunt the boy and get under his skin, but the boy remains undeterred. That is, until Jack escaped 2 days later and took the boy hostage. The guards and Amadeus try and talk Jack down, and Amadeus knows that while Jack is cunning, he is not stupid, and he let the boy go since the guards would shoot him dead if he tried to kill the boy. Amadeus found himself happy the boy was safe, and the incident seemed to strengthen the light in the child. Being that this is the absolute universe, this is going to end very badly, right? Nothing ever good lasts in a world made by Darkseid. We've seen it time and time again, so eventually all of this is going to come crumbling down around Amadeus. Also, I love the way that Frank draws the Jack Doe character, making him look specifically like a version of the Joker that's a bit more, I want to say, methed out, a bit more serial killers. He's very scary looking. He's got these great blood red eyes that are like these little dots in his head, and he's got these long snaky fingers. It just looks really creepy. Amadeus is broken from his story as a patient is wheeled past him and the young man, who knows the asylum still gets the odd patient, but Amadeus knows it's not that many nowadays, but they help who they can. The young man commends Amadeus for keeping things aloft, especially after the most infamous incident of them all. Amadeus tries to play it off as not knowing what the man means, but the young man knows he's done his homework and doesn't want the doctor to insult his intelligence, wanting to know all about the breakout. Amadeus details how back in 1886, a careless orderly got too close to an inmate and his throat was slashed open with a sharpened toothbrush and his keys were taken. The inmate freed all of the other inmates, silently killing the other nurses and doctors, and instead of fighting the guards outside the front door to the asylum, they all headed for the furnace room and worked through the night, digging out a tunnel behind one of the furnaces. So this is some creepy stuff, man. Like, I can just see this in a horror movie or a TV show, and it's all done in total silence. The nurses and all that are killed, and the inmates all file silently down to the basement like zombies and just begin to dig out their way out to freedom. It's just so creepy. The inmates escape the asylum, and Amadeus knew that Jack was the one behind all of this, and realizing he was freed made his heart skip a beat as he knew that Jack would come for him. Amadeus races to his son's room, finding blood everywhere but no sign of the boy. All that's left behind is the boy's teddy bear. Amadeus knows that the boy was lost to him forever from that day on, and he tells the young man that he never forgave himself for the breakout and what happened after, so to cope he created a record of his own shame. He shows the man a room full of news clippings of the murders and deaths that ensued, and he tells the man that the breakout was hidden from the papers in order to prevent panic, as Jack taught the other inmates the ways of crime, which then led to sprees of murder, robberies, and eventually after many incidents, the inmates were all returned to the asylum, all except for Jack, who escaped, and he believes he went on to become one of the most notorious serial killers on the earth, Jack the Ripper. Okay, so this is a twist I did not see coming at all, but one that makes so much sense. Surely this world's Joker was Jack the Ripper. It's such a cool idea and embeds him so much deeper into this world history than we've seen before. It also keeps what I was saying before about how you never know what Joker's true origin was. Was he carnival vaudeville act? Was he a clown? Was he a rich businessman who was running weapons for both sides during World War II? Was he Jack the Ripper? You don't know. Was he all of them? It's just so cool that this Joker could be all of them or none of them. He could be something completely different than what we've ever seen, and I like that keep on guessing game happening here. Amadeus knows that all his research points to Jack Doe being the Ripper, but the young man is well aware of the work. However, he is more interested in the furnace room. Amadeus shows him the furnace room, citing how it's been 60 years since the breakout, and he's never been down there since he could not face what happened. The young man notices the rebricked wall where the inmates escaped from, wondering why the wall across from it is also rebricked up as well. Amadeus feigns ignorance, knowing that he's not been down there for a long while and he doesn't actually know why. Luckily, the man knows, leaning into Amadeus and whispering something to him which chills Amadeus to the bone. The young man sees himself out, happy to buy the place, as he leaves Amadeus in his own mind, which goes over what the man said, so much so that it keeps him awake that night. Amadeus gets up and thought he heard the man wrong, but he knows he didn't, heading down to the furnace room and ripping open the bricked wall the man pointed out, shocked at what he finds behind the wall. So we actually don't get to see what he found behind that wall, not yet at least. That's revealed a little later on in the book. But because of what he sees, Amadeus goes crazy and sets his son's teddy bear on fire, burning down the entire asylum, as the journal details how he plans on putting this journal in the mail as soon as he's done with it. Before that, he has plans on proving what he already knows, the horrible truth, and one that might be his and the asylum's legacy now, which is why he had to burn it, the inmates and the staff, to the ground. As the entire building, complete with the staff and inmates, is obliterated by the fire, the buyer, revealed to be Jack Grimm himself, reads Amadeus's journal, which was bound for Commissioner Flass of the GCPD. So holy shit, the man Amadeus was planning to sell the asylum to was Jack all along. It makes sense he would be trying to buy this place, since that was kind of his thing that was hinted at in the origin issue, that he likes supporting charities and mental health centers, albeit very anonymously. So of course him trying to buy Arkham and then eventually turning it into what would become Arkham makes a lot of sense. In the present, Jack goes over the journal and Amadeus's research, which details what he learned not about Jack Doe, but about the boy he once called his son, and the boy who once pretended to believe in the asylum and its mission to help those who needed it. We finally get to see what Amadeus saw behind the bricked up wall, and it's a doozy, as he finds the dead body of Jack Doe, a sharpened toothbrush stabbed into his neck, revealing to him that the boy was actually the one behind everything and orchestrated the breakout, convincing Jack Doe to go through with it before killing him. Amadeus finds a note stuck to Jack's body with the phrase "tomorrow's a new page" scrawled on it, the same phrase that he and the boy shared as their way to tell each other their mission will continue the next day. He believes the boy did all of this just to make a fool out of him, and he is the true monster, and now he has come back to buy the asylum. So holy shit, the Joker's origin gets kind of recontextualized even again, since he absolutely was Jack the Ripper, but it wasn't Jack Doe who was the Jack the Ripper. It was actually Jack Grimm. The name Jack is also really interesting. So did Joker actually take the name Jack as a reference to Jack Doe that he met in the asylum, as kind of a way of, I don't know, some creepy way of honoring him, or like, that's him, taking a trophy from this killer that he knew? Very, very creepy, very cool stuff. I like what Scott Snyder and Frank Terry are setting up here with the Joker, and how he was just that little boy. He was just that boy who was fascinated with all these weird, sick individuals and manipulating things. Even as a child, he was manipulating things and orchestrating all of these mass deaths and terrible things happening. He's like this force of nature in this universe, which is great. Jack chuckles as he finishes the journal, heading into a secret room in his office as someone unseen wonders what they are looking at. Up on the view screens in front of Jack and the man is footage of Batman, who violently takes down some bank robbers, as Jack tells the voice that they are watching their new target, who goes by the name the Batman, and who is a former Arkham patient who escaped, or so he thinks. The voice wonders if they are playing with their food or wondering what comes next, and Jack will only say that he has his plans. But the other voice really isn't concerned, since he doesn't think that Batman is much of a real threat and they can handle him with ease. Jack doesn't doubt the voice could handle him, but there are other friends he wants to introduce the Batman to, pulling up files on Kirk Langstrom, Pamela Isley, Hugo Strange, Jonathan Crane, Basil Carlo, and Jervis Tetch, releasing all of them from their Arkham biomes. So I guess most of the villains will be released for the next story arc and kind of out there in Gotham now, as Batman's going to have a bit of a rogues gallery now, which is quite cool. It's a good smattering of villains too, some that will challenge Batman physically and some that will challenge him mentally. I'm very intrigued to see what characters like Hugo Strange and Jervis Tetch will be like, because they're the ones that probably will interest me the most, because like how do you fuck them up with the absolute formula? Like, what have they become in this universe? Like Man-Bat, you can kind of see as big giant man-bat creature. Pamela Isley, we kind of got to see where she's been turned into this weird eldritch abomination of a plant life. We obviously saw Bane. We've seen Killer Crocs. So but what do you do with Hugo Strange and Jervis Tetch? Like they are the really weird characters. I'm very interested to see what's going on with them. Jack knows that his friend will get a chance soon enough to fight Batman, as the voice is revealed to belong to Deathstroke, whom Jack calls his Deathstroke. And while I know we've seen Slade Wilson in this book back in the past, we've seen him hanging out with Jack, and Jack is kind of like his boss, and he's like his bodyguard almost. The way that Deathstroke is drawn here, it makes him look like Amadeus Arkham. Like, I am not going insane in thinking that it looks like him. And I don't think it is. I think it's going to be Slade Wilson. What a fucking swerve would it be if Jack kept Amadeus alive, didn't let him burn in that fire or something, and just kept him alive to be his assassin, to do his bidding, kind of like, again, perverting what Amadeus wanted the asylum to become, and then also perverting himself as a person. Oh, he's helping these people like Batman. Oh, not really anymore. He's trying to kill these people who need help. I could definitely see there being a story there, but as I said, we've seen Slade Wilson, but also just the way Jack refers to him as his Deathstroke. Like, maybe there's multiple Deathstrokes, maybe Slade is one of them, and maybe he turned Amadeus into one of them. Like, Deathstroke here does have somewhat robotic legs, so maybe he turned Amadeus into a cyborg against his will or something. Again, there's just some really cool stuff you could do with this, and I'm hoping to see a bit more of Slade Wilson coming up in an upcoming arc of Absolute Batman. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they've been doing with Deathstroke and how they've been setting him up as like a foil for Alfred as well. So I can't wait to see what Scott Snyder has in store for us with Deathstroke. Absolute Batman Arkham Special Issue 1 was such a trip, filled with insane new lore for both Gotham, Arkham, and the Joker, filling in some gaps in the villain's origins while also giving us a thoroughly compelling and horrific take on Amadeus Arkham and his family and his life of misery as he tried to just help out the people of Gotham. I can't wait to see what else Snyder has in store for us for Batman in 2026 and what horrible, creepy new takes on some of my favorite Batman villains he has. I'm going to give this issue a 10 out of 10.